Welcome back. This lecture is specifically designed for post-MBBS medical students preparing for their OSCE, usmle, plab, and NEET PG exams. This diagram illustrates the two categories of rectal prolapse. Left, in mucosal prolapse, only mucosa and submucosa descend under 3.75 centimeters. Right, in full-thickness procedentia, the entire rectal wall descends around 10 centimeters, acting as a sliding hernia containing an anterior peritoneal pouch. During a physical exam, you must distinguish a true prolapse from third-degree internal hemorrhoids. A rectal prolapse presents with concentric rings of pink mucosa. Prolapsed internal hemorrhoids display deep radial folds and have a distinct plum-colored, trifoliate, or three-lobed structure. Before planning any surgical intervention, you must perform a complete colonoscopy. This is necessary to rule out coexisting colorectal pathology, such as polyps or malignancies, that could be driving the symptoms. Additional imaging refines the physiological picture. Anorectal manometry measures the pressure profile and resting tone of the anal sphincter mechanism. Defecography, or dynamic pelvic MRI, identifies internal intussusception, where the rectum telescopes into itself without breaching the anal verge. Accurately determining whether the defect is a superficial mucosal slip or a full-thickness evagination dictates the entire course of treatment. Once you confirm the anatomical depth, you move to the surgical decision matrix. This decision tree maps the standard of care for rectal prolapse. The critical dividing line is the patient's physiological reserve. We stratify patients into two primary surgical pathways: the perineal route for older, frail patients, and the abdominal route for young, physically fit individuals. But before exploring surgery, note the conservative pathway. Digital repositioning and bowel habit regulation are usually sufficient for infants, whose sacral curves are still developing, and for adults presenting with very early, mild mucosal descent. When simple manual reduction fails in these initial stages, the next step is submucosal injection. The clinician injects a solution of 5% phenol in almond oil directly into the submucosal layer at both the apex and the base of the prolapse. This chemical irritant deliberately triggers an aseptic inflammatory response. The resulting localized fibrosis acts like a biological glue, tethering the loose mucosa back to the underlying muscular coat. Sclerotherapy and physical therapy stabilize minor mucosal sliding. However, once the full thickness of the rectal wall loses its fixation and evaginates through the sphincter, conservative measures fail. A structural defect requires a structural, mechanical repair. We begin with the perineal pathway. This approach is performed from below, usually under local or regional anesthesia. It prioritizes patient survival and minimal operative trauma over anatomical perfection, making it ideal for highly comorbid patients, though it carries a higher rate of recurrence. Thiersch's procedure uses a palliative cerclage, placing a robust wire around the internal sphincter to constrict the anal orifice. Tightly burying this material, shown in panels D, E, and F, invites high complication rates, frequently causing severe anal strictures or chronically discharging sinus tracts. A more durable perineal alternative is Delorme's operation. This schematic highlights the initial stage, where the surgeon carefully excises a circumferential sleeve of the prolapsed mucosa, leaving the underlying muscular layer completely intact and exposed. This sequence illustrates the biomechanics of Delorme's repair. After stripping the mucosa, the surgeon places plicating sutures into the raw muscle, tying these folds the muscle like an accordion, creating a bulky internal muscular ring that physically reinforces the weakened anal sphincter. For substantially larger prolapses where plication is insufficient, the surgeon performs Altemeier's procedure, also known as a perineal rectosigmoidectomy. The redundant, externalized bowel is pulled down until taut, completely amputated outside the anus, and the two remaining cut ends are sutured together. Excising that segment of the rectosigmoid colon removes the natural rectal reservoir. Consequently, Altemeyer's carries a specific elevated risk of postoperative fecal incontinence because the patient is left with a severely shortened anorectal stump. The perineal approach accepts a known compromise. You sacrifice a degree of functional continence and long-term durability, but you spare fragile patients the physiological stress of major abdominal surgery. For young, physically fit patients, the algorithm shifts to the abdominal pathway. Whether performed open or laparoscopically, operating through the abdomen provides a definitive anatomical correction with the lowest risk of recurrence. The primary objective is rectopexy. In the Wells operation shown here, the rectum is securely anchored to the presacral fascia using synthetic mesh wrap. Notice the mesh covers only the posterior 3/4. Leaving the anterior wall uncovered prevents scar tissue from causing severe luminal strictures. Contrast the posterior wrap with the Ripstein procedure, shown here. Instead of a posterior sheet, Ripstein utilizes a 5 cm band of Teflon placed anteriorly around the rectum. The free ends of this sling are then sutured back to the presacral fascia. Other rectopexy variations rely on distinct mesh configurations. You will encounter the Lockhart-Mummery technique using presacral sponge packing, the Loygue procedure using lateral mesh placement, or ventral rectopexy, which secures the mesh to the anterior aspect of the rectum and the vaginal vault. Mesh fixation secures the prolapse, but it does not treat severe pre-existing constipation. If a fit patient presents with precedentia alongside a highly redundant sigmoid colon, the algorithm dictates an anterior resection, often termed a Frykman-Goldberg procedure, to surgically remove the excess bowel. When dissecting deep into the pelvis for an anterior resection, the surgeon must stay meticulously close to the rectal wall. Straying too far laterally risks severing the pelvic splanchnic nerves, which causes permanent bladder dysfunction and impotence in male patients. These sagittal cross-sections summarize the abdominal pathway's goal. Whether the surgeon employs synthetic mesh, resects redundant colon, or combines both, the final objective is identical. Mobilize the rectum, pull it taut, anchor it firmly to the sacrum, and permanently restore the correct anal rectal angle. To synthesize the surgical algorithm for the wards, keep this comparative matrix in mind. For fit patients, abdominal rectopexy offers high durability paired with higher operative risk. For frail patients, perineal approaches like Delorme's or Altemeyer's accept lower durability in exchange for much lower surgical risk. Within the fit pathway, the patient's bowel habits are the final tiebreaker. Severe, documented constipation dictates that you must add a sigmoid resection to the standard rectopexy. Achieving perfect anatomical fixation in the operating room does not guarantee functional success. Because the pelvic floor musculature has been chronically stretched, post-operative pelvic floor physical therapy and diligent bowel habit regulation are essential to correct persistent functional incontinence. Thank you for watching. For live clinical review sessions, weekly MCQs, and more detailed case studies, make sure to subscribe to the Advanced Surgery Mentorship channel.